This is Time Signatures with Jim Ervin, a podcast and radio program presented by the Capital Area Blues Society in Lansing, Michigan.
Driving up and down these Michigan roads, yeah.
And now, here he is, your host, Jim Ervin.
Well, thank you so much, Parker, and welcome to Time Signatures. I'm your host, Jim Ervin, and my very special guest today is a young lady from North Dakota that's been making a name for herself and her band, the Groove Revival. Now, some would call her work blues rock, but make no mistake, she can definitely get down and gritty with some good old-fashioned blues as well. And if you like a bit of Southern rock in your musical diet, she also dabbles in that as well, a la the Allman Brothers. Now, we have a lot to talk about, so please let's get this party started. Vocalist, songwriter, guitarist, and producer, Jennifer Lynn. Welcome to Time Signatures. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Jim.
Well, it is an honor to have you here, but I want to get going by starting to talk about your earliest memories of music. Take us back, and what do you recall?
That would definitely be at my grandparents' house. They had one of those radios that, to a small child, it's taller than a small kid. And
Yep.
in that radio, I can remember hearing anything from outlaw country, which my grandfather was a big fan of. So Willie, Waylon, and the Boys. And also grew up with a lot of kind of traditional country, bluegrass, also Motown, R&B. And then when I would visit my grandparents on the other side of the family, they were older. Went through, World War II, the Great Depression, all of that,
Sure.
and grew up in their house listening to more big band stuff and jazz, which was also really cool.
Yeah.
So I kind of grew up with a little bit of a hodgepodge of a musical environment, and then I stumbled upon my parents' vinyl, and the rest was kind of history. I was an only child. So growing up in Minnesota, where, you're in Michigan, right?
Yes,
So
I am.
so you can relate. The
Yep.
snow will leave you stranded and you're stuck in your house. And for an only child, my parents' vinyl was definitely a refuge when I was real young. So
Very cool. Any favorite musicians or bands from those early years? Any
oh
songs
boy.
that would play over and over and over and drive people nuts?
Yeah, there's a funny story my mom would probably tell. The Oak Ridge Boys, there was a vinyl that mysteriously got lost because I had played it over and over and over again. That and Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers' Islands in the Stream got played nonstop. That's when I was real young. I just loved the harmonies that were presented in both of those songs.
Hmm.
And when I got to be a little bit older, where I actually was kind of understanding and making more choices with my music, with my parents' stuff, it was the Animals. I loved kind of more of that edgy rock that was coming out
Oh,
of
yeah.
Britain that when they were growing up. The band Free. I love Paul Kossoff's playing. And then, kind of the more traditional answers, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix here from the States. Just a collection of where the overdriven guitars were something for me that always kind of captured my ear even before I was a guitar player. It's just something about it that I really enjoyed.
Well, Jennifer, you don't identify yourself as a blues purist. I did hear some tracks from an earlier release that you definitely show the ability to deliver the goods with that old school blues sound as well. But here's what I read. She draws inspiration from various genres, including rock, blues, R&B, and a touch of roots music. Yeah, I can definitely feel that when I listen to your music. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm glad that that comes through. I think our fans seem to enjoy the fact that it's not maybe as rigid as some would maybe want it to be, I guess. But for us, it really works. It's also a collection of the other musicians that I perform with in my band. My co-writer and musical partner in crime, I guess you could say. He's the other guitar player in our band. We have a lot of similar musical inspirations. For him, it would be kind of Clapton is a big one for him.
Sure.
Um, and a lot of that, the Allman Brothers for both of us is a big one, especially with the dual guitar parts that we like to perform. And yeah, so it all kind of gets jumbled up into a sound which, luckily for us, I feel is a good fit for the type of music we like to create. So,
Well, Jennifer, I have to ask you, at what point did you determine that a career in music was in the cards for you?
I'm still trying to figure that out, Jim. No,
Okay.
no. Actually, it was a conversation with my grandmother. When I was a teenager, I stumbled upon a VH1 documentary on Bruce Springsteen, which is kind of interesting, I suppose. I was about 13 years old. I was writing short stories at the time. It was kind of something I did creatively to occupy my time.
Sure.
Again, during
Like,
those awesome winter snowstorms. And after seeing that documentary, for me, I was like, I love singing. I love music. I wasn't really active in anything other than, maybe the choirs that we were a part of in school. But after seeing that, I was like, that is what I want to do. I want to still tell stories like that. And so what happened was during high school, I was writing a lot of music. None of it was probably good, but I was writing a lot of music and I was learning how to play guitar. I was teaching myself. I was an
sure.
athlete, so I didn't have a whole lot of spare time, but it was definitely something I was interested in. And my grandmother, let's see, she passed away in 2011. And she pulled me aside. She had cancer. And if there is any bright side to cancer, it's that for someone who has it, there's now a time clock, I think, that kind of gets kicked in where things can be said, if that makes sense. You get to
Yes, ma'am.
spend the remaining
Yes.
time that you have. And she pulled me aside and had a heart to heart with me and asked me why I wasn't doing music anymore. I went to college, and like most people, you kind of get busy with the things, pursuing a career,
Sure.
and things kind of got pushed to the side a little bit. And it was that conversation with her because she said, even if you do it purely for the enjoyment of you enjoy doing it, that's all that matters. It's a gift that you've been given. And if it resonates with anyone else, you should take it upon yourself to share that with other people. And I really took that to heart because I could also see in what she was telling me, there was a lot of value for not only me. If I write a song that resonates with someone else, there's a
Sure.
lot of value in that. So that's kind of how it started. And it was because of that conversation with her that I picked up the guitar again and had the 5 chords that I knew on guitar. I was awful. It was so bad. Like playing bar chords was questionable at best. And one thing just kind of led to another where I was not able to put it down. It just became this thing that I really started to focus my time on, and the
Sure.
rest is kind of history. It's been a really fun journey.
Well, I'm sitting here thinking back, and I think you might be one of the first, if not the first musician that I've talked to that formed a band and got rolling in the early aftermath of the COVID pandemic. Was this something that you were planning prior to the pandemic? Maybe got
Oh,
started on and got stopped, or what?
yeah, a little. There was definitely a little bit of that. So when I started and picked up the guitar again, and then got to a point where I felt comfortable performing in front of other human beings and even getting paid for it, I was a trio at the time, and
Okay.
I knew for me that was how I wanted to start. I knew I didn't always want to stay that way, but I knew if I introduced another guitar player into the band, I was going to start pawning stuff off on them. So it was kind of my way to challenge myself and say, hey, if you're going to do this, I really need to build a foundation on my own before I include anyone else. And
Sure.
then it kind of built to where I was a 4 piece. And right before COVID hit, it escalated to the point that we were a 5 piece. We didn't have a set keyboard player at that time, but we kind of had some
Okay.
ideas of who we wanted that to be. But
Yeah.
yeah, so so we were just finally starting to get into doing the shows that we wanted to do right when COVID hit. But not that COVID at all was a blessing, because it definitely wasn't for anyone.
Yeah.
Um, but it did kind of make us hit the pause button. And with all that downtime, it gave us a chance to take some of the songs that my co-writer and I had been kind of milling around with and decide to do something more formal with it. And that was our album, Nothing Holding Me Down. And then the
Very
rest is
cool.
kind of history. We're plugging away at it. It's been a lot of fun.
And turning the page here in 2022, you released that first album, or actually an EP, to
Hmm.
be concise, Nothing Holding Me Down. And you garnered 4 Independent Blues Music Award nominations, including Best Blues Rock Band and Best Blues Rock Album. This work was all yours, too. There were no covers, were there?
Right. There were no covers on that album. And that's kind of always been our intention with our studio albums, is we try to
Sure.
keep them all originals, which is also a good avenue for us to I mean, that's the point. We love writing, and
Yeah.
but yeah, we did. We actually wrote, for sure, two of the songs on that EP we wrote during lockdown over Zoom, because we
Okay.
were missing each other, missing making music together. And so I had kind of the beginning stages of writing that. And then when we recorded that album, because we do all of our recording actually in my home studio, and that was really interesting because we were recording it in pieces, because it was at a time where you couldn't really safely,
Right.
there was still so many question marks with COVID that, getting more than two people together was kind of something that you didn't want to do at that time. So we recorded it in pieces, and I had a whole ton of free time. So I learned how to mix and master, and that's been an evolving process as well, which has been a lot of fun. So.
Now, I wanted to ask you because, getting out there and getting that first EP released and getting the kind of attention that you got, that must have been an exciting time for you
Yeah, it
to see
really
your music
was.
accepted on that level.
It was. Most artists will say that's, of course, not why we get into the business, but there's definitely,
Yeah, we know the truth. Come on, man.
yeah.
You gotta be wanting some kind of, validation for what you're doing. Come on.
That's really what it is. Because,
Yeah.
getting it from the fans is one thing. That's, for me, what means the most, because those are the people that are really kind of living with the music we create. We've heard lots of great stories from fans that we've had, where some of our music has helped them through a hard time, which a lot of musicians obviously can share that story, because that is the whole point. It's the human condition, and
Yes.
writing some music that goes along with it. But yeah, getting some recognition within our industry was very nice. It was very unexpected, and we were very appreciative to be considered for those nominations.
Yes, ma'am. Now, in 2023, Jennifer, your band released the second official EP entitled Gypsy Soul. And that one spent 16 weeks on the Roots Music Reports charts, peaking at number 2 in the blues rock category. Again, that had to have felt amazing, especially given the early success that you had with your first EP. But because this was the second album that was featuring solely the work of Jennifer Lynn and the Groove Revival, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, it did. It felt great. And we actually, so truth be told, I currently am holding down a full-time job. I'm a college professor currently. And so as a result of that, it definitely was a challenge during that time, because again, COVID was going on. So I'm teaching classes remotely, and there's all sorts of craziness. But our plan was to always kind of take those albums and pair them together as kind of one cohesive. So when we wrote Gypsy Soul, we kept it a little bit more traditional blues, because we
Uh-huh.
had kind of felt that Nothing Holding Me Down was a little bit more on the rock side. So we wanted to kind of
Yep.
create this nice little pairing that we could put together, almost like a cohesive album that we just released in pieces because of the time restraints that we kind of have. And so yeah, so that was, again, we weren't expecting that, which was really nice. And we definitely appreciate any consideration that we can get. It's just
Sure.
nice to have our music getting out there to the masses. So.
And I have to ask you about that first regional tour that you went out on. It sounds like you guys were very well received. Would you agree?
Yeah, yes, we hit the road, and for us, we're located in Bismarck, North Dakota, which some might consider saying, okay, that's like you're the redheaded stepchild because you're in the middle of prairie country with playing the blues. Okay, how does
Let,
that
let me
work?
let me stop you for 1 minute, okay? And then I'll turn you loose again. When I was doing the intro, I started going down that road and I'm thinking, she's from North Dakota. She's not from Memphis. She's not from Kansas City. And I
Right.
thought, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to put that kind of a spin on it. But you're right.
It's
And
true.
it really speaks to the fact, Jennifer, you don't have to be from Memphis. You
No.
don't have to be from the Mississippi Delta. You just need to be somebody that's got that vibe and you understand the music. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And our local fan base here in Bismarck has been absolutely amazing and beyond supportive. We actually last week had our largest show here in Bismarck. It was at a great historic venue in town, and we just have a
Nice.
tremendous amount of support. So for anyone that's like North Dakota, in fact, I've seen it in some of our album reviews. You can it's either literally written exactly as North Dakota. It's not really a place you think for the blues. But you could argue that with so many people. I mean, Joe's from upstate New York. I'm sure when he was
Sure.
first starting out, he experienced the same kind
Yep.
of people looking at him going, okay, yeah, okay, blues. Yeah, that makes sense. But people are actually really hip to it. I think it's more just I kind of subscribe to the Quincy Jones way of thinking about music, which is there's two types. You've got good music and bad music. And if it's good music, people usually can rally around that and they can see value in it. And that's kind of what we would have been experiencing in our home state.
Well, and I guess that begs the question then, are you finding that maybe you're bringing mainstream blues and some of the rock blues genre to the fore in front of a group that maybe haven't seen it before or haven't got much experience seeing it?
That's hard to say. That would probably be a good question for some of our fans. I think the fact that our music always kind of comes across as a little bit what I hear from a lot of our fans is, boy, your music really takes me back and makes me feel like I'm in the 70s, which I take as a compliment because
Oh,
again,
absolutely.
that is the music that, like I said, I grew up on, where a lot of dual guitars, a lot of great harmonies. The songwriting is usually, I feel telling a good story that goes along with the music. Um, so I think, it's not necessarily that they're kind of latching on to the blues. I would suspect they're probably more latching on to just the emotions that come with it, which is kind of that throwback kind of a 70s feel.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
So here you come again in 2024. You've got this album coming out. Or actually it's out. Something different from the first two releases in that you have several pieces of your own work,
Mhm.
but you've also added a small block of covers featuring the music of Greg Allman, The Animals, and John Fogerty for good measure. Talk about this new album for a moment.
Yeah, so our latest album that came out this year was a live album, and we recorded it actually in our hometown of Bismarck, North Dakota. And the covers that we chose to put on the album were ones that, for me and also some of my bandmates, kind of had a special significance. Um, so we chose to cover a Bonnie Raitt tune because, hey, I'm a woman in the blues. It doesn't get any better than Bonnie Raitt. So having granted, it was a cover that she did. It was a Chris Smithers tune, and the first time I heard her do it, though, it was, how there are songs that are written just like how Janis Joplin took me and Bobby McGee, right? I can't
Yes,
imagine
yes,
anyone else singing it. That's how I feel about Love Me Like a Man and Bonnie Raitt singing that. So the covers that we chose were kind of a tip of the hat to some of the artists and bands that have come before us that have really inspired the music we create. So the covers that are on that album, there's 5 of them, and we were pretty selective on which 5 they would be, just because they had such significance and impact on our music that we create.
And it's interesting because you had mentioned, Greg Allman and some of the Southern rock stuff earlier in the interview. And so it didn't, when you said that, it kind of put the pieces together and said, that's why they chose them.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
I want to talk about upcoming promotions. Are you guys planning on going out on tour? Do you have any other plans with this new work yet? What's going on?
Yeah, so right now we're actually finishing up a run of shows here in November, which we're touching on a little bit of our region. We're still at the infancy, I guess you could say, of touring. So for us,
Sure.
it's currently North Dakota, Minnesota, and South Dakota, and we're planning to expand that in 2025. And it's been going really great. We're four-walling everything, which is also extremely exhausting, which means we book the venue, we get the sound production, we do the marketing, we do the advertising, we do all the things. Because we're essentially kind of creating venues where there technically aren't any,
Right.
because the bar scene just doesn't really work for us. We've done it, don't get me wrong, and it's not that we didn't have a good time. It's just we find for the type of music we create more of like the tiered seating venue, or places where people have seats where they actually are coming for the music and don't have to strain to hear over the guy who's 6 beers into his night. Tends to work a lot better for our fans. So we've been creating that environment. And we are actually just at the beginning stages of polishing up our next studio album as well, which will be 10 songs, all originals, that'll release next year. So
Okay.
lots of things in the hopper. And yeah, we've just been enjoying having the opportunity to get out and visit with a lot of our fans on the road, and meet new people as well, new people into our ecosystem, and it's been a good time.
And I'm sure that being able to get out, especially post COVID now, has been, like many people that I've talked to, many of the musicians, it's a breath of fresh air, if you will,
Oh yeah.
to be able to get back out there and do those kind of events.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I feel like it's therapy for everyone, because the people that are
very much
coming to
so.
the shows, I mean, especially we have, not only do we have people that are super supportive of our bands, they're just die-hard music supporters, which is, when COVID hit, it was just as hard on them as it was on musicians not being able to perform. Yeah.
I actually write an article for the Capital Area Blues Society, of which I'm a member of the board, and it's called Up and Down These Michigan Roads with Irv. And about every quarter when we do our newsletter, I do a list of all the shows that I've been to. And it's amazing to me. I mean, I did 3 shows in one week. I had Walter Trout on Friday. On Monday, I had Warren Haynes over in Grand Rapids.
Oh,
And
wow.
who else did I think I had Thornetta Davis, like, midweek.
Nice.
It's like, how can you beat that kind of a gig, the quality
Yeah.
of the music? And I'm also a concert photographer, so I've got photography that I do quite a bit as well. But it's a great time being out there. Now, Jennifer, I wanted to ask you, with this new album that you're going to be releasing, has there been any talk about vinyl? Because as you can
Oh, yeah.
see, I happen to have vinyl over here. I've got a nice chunk that I've amassed since April.
Yes, we are all about the vinyl. In fact, we actually did what I kind of described when I had said, our first EP, Nothing Holding Me Down, our second EP, Gypsy Soul. We always kind of pictured them as a nice little piggyback pairing.
Hmm.
So we did make a vinyl out of that. We put them together.
Oh,
Yep, and it's that vinyl is called Astro Gypsy, kind of a play on the album cover from each. And then we also did a vinyl release for our live album, and yeah, the live album, we actually did end up charting with that, which was really cool. Billboard, we had a number 4 spot for that release, which was
very
really
nice.
cool. And yeah, what I think is really neat too is our vinyl sales on that album were pretty comparable to CDs, where I was like, yes, people are into vinyl again. This is so great. I mean, you can see the trend, but when you actually experience it as a musician, it's so cool. Just the nostalgia of knowing there's people putting a needle on your music somewhere is pretty neat.
Well, trust me, when we're done with this interview, I'm going to get the information and I'm going to be ordering the Astro Gypsy and the live album
Nice.
because one can never have too much vinyl. That's all there is to
No,
it.
I'm
You,
so
you
with
can't
you.
see it. I even have over here to my left, I have an ultrasonic cleaner. So I get the old blues albums and I've cleaned them all and I got tags on
Nice.
them so I know they're done and it's a whole thing.
So
But
you're an
Jennifer,
audiophile. I love it.
oh, big time. I'm a child of the 70s and my musical memories go way back into much like you, a very eclectic blend of stuff going from my grandparents with the big band and the jazz and stuff like that. My mom with the 50s and the oldies and the war years and all that. And of course, I came up in the early 70s. So come on, man, you classic rock, baby,
Yeah, I know.
But
That was a
Jen,
great decade.
oh yeah. So Jennifer, where can people go to purchase a copy of your new CD, maybe get some merch or even book you for a gig in their in their hometown?
Sure, absolutely. Our website is our home for everything. Anyone can access any of those things. And our website is jlyn, LYN, and thegrooverevival.com.
Very good. And
Yeah,
we'll make sure to put that on the notes for the episode when we put it up.
awesome.
But Jennifer Lynn, I want to thank you so much for taking time to come and talk about your music here on Time Signatures. Looking forward to seeing what unfolds for you in the future with your band. And anytime you have news to share, including that new album, get in
Yeah.
touch, and we will get you back on. Is that a deal?
That's a deal. Thanks so much for having me, Jim. I appreciate it.
Very cool. Well, that wraps up this edition of Time Signatures with Jim Ervin. Once again, my thanks to Jennifer Lynn. But most importantly, I want to say thank you to you for being here, for without you, none of this would be possible. Jim Ervin reminding you that keeping the blues alive is everyone's responsibility, but preserving the history of the blues one story at a time, that's my mission. Until next time, so long.
This has been Time Signatures with Jim Ervin, presented by the Capital Area Blues Society in Lansing, Michigan. For more information on cabs, visit capitalareablues.org. You can find this episode and past episodes at lcconnect.org. The Time Signatures theme song, Michigan Roads, is used by permission and was written by Root Doctor, featuring Freddie Cunningham.
You know I'm trying, baby, driving up and down these Michigan roads, yeah.
Until next time, keep on keeping the blues alive.